I had a case where a Muslim man was married, and he was married in custody, and he never divorced his first wife, and he married another woman in the Muslim law. So he's still married to this first woman, and then he married the next woman. So this woman talked him, and she wanted to stop back, so this woman can slice. Can that happen?
Well, firstly, an Islamic law, unless the husband delegates his right to talaq, the wife doesn't talaq the husband. The husband talaqs the wife. Right? So maybe you're just using different terminology. So in your scenario, the second wife left the husband and took a step with him, with her. So what question?
I'm asking, can you get married like that?
Yes, have more than one wife. Okay, let's get to polygyny. Right.
Wait, what was that?
Okay, let's deal with the issue of polygyny, right?
Oh,
yeah,
polygamy.
No, polygamy, right? So we're making a distinction between polygamy with an M and polygyny with an N. Although polygamy, the two usually get used interchangeably sometimes in the literature and with people, but there is a distinction between the two. Polygamy with an M is where both spouses have the right to take multiple spouses.
Ooh, I like that. I quite like that.
Look, I mean, I was in a master's class the other night. We were having a discussion about, are people actually inherently monogamous? Or are we actually inherently polygynous? Polygamous, right? You can be in a relationship with one person and be attracted to someone else.
Yes.
The colloquial term is polyamorous because it recognizes love relationships between multiple partners that are not based on marriage.
Okay.
So you might have a primary relationship with a marriage partner and multiple other intimate
outside of that. Okay. So, and then is it inclusive of different sexes? Polyamorous. Okay. And then there's polyandry, of course, where the wife has the right to take multiple spouses. Yeah.
We're approaching this polygamy or polygamy, however you want to address it. And previously, you had said something about if a maula or imam conducts an Islamic marriage without first getting approval of the state, and it would be a second marriage for the individual in view. Am I correct to assume that South Africa recognizes plural marriages?
Not Muslim plural marriages. Okay?
Do they recognize non-Muslim plural marriages?
African customary marriages, yes. So what we have...
And is that limited to men having multiple wives?
Yeah.
Oh, but it hasn't...
So it's polygyny.
So it has not reversed so that wives can have multiple men.
And that's because...
But if you're a female... I can have multiple female committed partners.
The custom wouldn't recognize it. So that's the thing. I mean, what is actually been legally recognized here? It's the custom of the community as understood by the male leaders within that community.
It's patriarchal.
Precisely. Absolutely. So what we have,
not at you.
Okay. I mean, and this takes us to why Muslim marriages are not recognized or were not recognized to begin with. Right? We're talking about a form of marriage during colonialism and during apartheid that the government of the day decided needed to conform to certain prerequisites. What was it? A marriage is a union between one man and one woman for the duration, for the lifetime of those partners. Okay. So, and let's face it, secularism has developed from Christianity. Secularism has Christian underpinnings. I mean, I don't think we can whitewash that. And so we had a Christian understanding of marriage that found its way into the secular system, and a secular marriage, right? The European countries like France would like to think that secularism means a complete separation between religion and state, when the fact is that secularism itself has religious underpinnings. So we were sitting with a legal form of marriage that restricted it to a man and a woman for the lifetime of those parties, which meant that not only did it exclude same-sex marriages, it also excluded potentially polygynous marriages. So African customary marriages, Muslim marriages, Hindu marriages, Jewish marriages were not legally recognized. 1994, advent of democracy, we see the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act being enacted, recognizing African customary marriages. And polygyny is a significant element of African customary marriages, and so that was specifically legislated. And in the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, in effect, that act very much tries to assimilate, if you study that act, it tries to assimilate customary marriages into the mainstream understanding or the secular understanding of marriage. And it recognizes certain nuances of customary marriages such as lobola and polygyny. Those are the only two exceptions actually. Everything else is assimilated. So that gets recognized, but the other marriages have not yet been recognized. So one of the arguments supporting legal recognition is that a precedent has been created. And how can you recognize one form of polygynous marriage and then decide not to recognize the others? Right? But in our case, we're saying in addition to that, one has to consider the negative effects it has on the people in wanting to recognize it. So polygyny, under Islamic law, okay, and of course here we have to realize that there are different interpretations. The mainstream interpretation is that polygyny is permitted, subject to limitations, right? And it's pure, it's Quranic based, and it's also based on historical context. The verse relating to polygyny, Quran 4:3 and Quran 4:129.